Welcome to the Osmo Early Bird Podcast. I'm your old pal Emac coming to you on a Friday night talking about Saturday NBA action, joined by one Adam, Ship My Money Share. Adam, what's going on? We had some excitement. It looks like, as we're recording this, that TJ Warren and Devin Booker have been ruled out. They were both doubtful and questionable, respectively, on Tuesday when we were doing this. So we got them the hell out of our lineups, and then they played. We ran them with impunity, not Warren, but Booker at least. Now it looks like he's out. What the hell's going on in Phoenix?
I don't know, but it's pretty annoying. It's starting to remind me of basketball a couple of years ago where every single night it was just random stuff for multiple teams. At least now it's only one really that we've had to worry about, but pretty frustrating. So
it is. Who knew that Sacramento would be the model of stability in the end?
Seriously. Like, they've been one of the easiest teams to predict this year.
All right. Well, let's run through. We've got a 6-game slate. There is a 5 o'clock game. We are not going to cover that. Sneak peek, we will talk about it briefly. It's Milwaukee and the Knicks. We'll talk about that on the Saturday show. For those of you listening to this Friday night, Saturday, around 11 a.m. Eastern time, we will go game by game and take a leisurely walk through our games here, which has turned out to be quite a popular show. You can jump in there on the YouTube channel and ask questions. We definitely encourage that. If you are not following, go into YouTube, type in Osmo, find the channel, subscribe, and then you will get notifications because we are running all sorts of shows now. And the key thing with the notifications is with the deeper dive, which is very popular with Adam and Lofty, because some nights we'll have 11 games, some nights we'll have 4 games on the main slates. We may run that earlier or later than the usual 6 o'clock start time. So once you subscribe, you'll get the notifications. But we've run a wagering show today with Ben and myself. We kicked that off, and we looked at the college football for this weekend and NFL, looking for some live dogs, as they say, and reverse line movements and all sorts of goodness. So that's something we're working through here, and we're welcome to any suggestions with that show. And that's something that will be going forward every week and probably multiple times during the week as things have changed. Adam, what are your thoughts on the FanDuel who didn't want to do golf, didn't want to do NASCAR, but now are willing to do second half NFL game contests?
It's a nice little rate grab. Hopefully they make some money off of it. It's whatever. I mean, I think we're past the point where the sites are pretending that they aren't going to offer anything that will make them money, and regardless of, how close to the line of, skill versus complete luck it is. And, it's whatever. Like, clearly the legal landscape is moving towards the direction of not really caring either, as sports betting is becoming more legal across the country. So not really an issue, I would assume, in that regard. So, whatever, good for them if people play it.
Excellent. More and more player props. That's what I would like to see. Well, not like to see, because then the content is never ending, but it would be a lot more fun. I am in Virginia, where if it's fantasy player props, you can play them, but if it's gambling, it's a no-go, no dice, as they say. All right, let's hit on a few of our many injury notes. We'll hit them quickly here. We're going to go by position. This, of course, is your first look foundational podcast on the Early Bird. If you have not yet signed up for Osmo Premium content, use the promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word, and you can get 1 week of all premium content. That does include the Fantasy Cruncher add-on as well as Slack chat. Just when you go to osmo.com/join, click the 1 week package, select it with Fantasy Cruncher, fill in your information. The last field will be where you put in the promo code. If you type in Early Bird, all one word, you will get 1 week of free premium content. It's definitely worthwhile. You get all the projections, the ownership projections, which are phenomenal. And tune in on to any of our strategy shows. We now run them Monday through Saturday, and we will explain how to use the ownership projections. And that is something that has become a lot of fun, particularly for myself. And with Adam, because we are doing more, well, I'm doing more of the mass multi-entry. Adam is running in single entry and 3-man contests, but he is running multiple lineups through all of those, not just 1 to 3 standard set lineups. So it's very, very helpful, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But with our injuries, we have Steph Curry should be returning from his groin injury on Saturday. Draymond Green's still going to be out for a couple games. He is on their upcoming 5-game road trip that starts tomorrow, and he has said that he thinks he will return during that. Andre Iguodala did play 36 minutes in the last game, so I suspect he may get a bit of a breather with Steph returning. Joe Harris was out on Friday night. That is important because we have 7 teams on a back-to-back amongst the 12 we're going to be looking at. Those would be Detroit, Brooklyn, Washington, Chicago, Houston, Boston, and Cleveland. Back to the injuries here. We've got DeMarre Carroll has a sore foot. He is playing on Friday, it looks like, but I don't know that he'll play the back-to-back. Jeff Green started for the Wizards, took a nasty spill, bonked his head, but he came back to the bench and should be in the game once again. But this is a back-to-back, and he's been dealing with a back injury. So we'll have to see what his status is for Saturday. We know that Otto Porter Jr. was out Friday for a personal issue. We're not aware of his status yet for Saturday. We know that Dwight Howard is going to be out for a couple months. He's having surgery on his back. They're alleviating a nerve issue that was running through his gluteus maximus, shall we say, and the sciatica, I think is what a lot of people call that. But he's going to be out for a couple months there with surgery. We know that Victor Oladipo has been announced as being out indefinitely now with his right knee soreness, so we're not going to see him for a little while. We had Chris Paul and Gerald Green both playing on Friday night, but we do have a back-to-back, and they have both missed multiple games, so we'll have to see what their status is for Saturday. Al Horford was out Friday just for rest. Decent chance he is going to play on Saturday. It was Cleveland on Friday night. It's at Minnesota. Little tougher matchup, so I expect to see him play on Saturday. We have Jaylen Brown is out with the tailbone issue. Danny Green did play 39 minutes. Now, he had been dealing with back spasms himself, but we'll have to see what happens. They play on Saturday, they being the Raptors. They don't play again until Monday, so we'll have to see what happens with him. I suspect he will play, but they look to have a full complement of their players back. So we will have to see what happens. And because they do have a day off on Sunday, we probably will be seeing Kawhi Leonard playing as well. He has not been playing on some of the back-to-backs, so he should be a full go. With Chicago, they do have Daniel Nwaba was out Friday with a knee injury. George Hill was returning with a shoulder injury. Again, back-to-back. We'll have to see what happens with him. And then Bagley for Sacramento had a back injury, and he is listed as questionable. I think I hit all of the major ones. Anything that you're aware that I missed there?
No, it sounds like you got all of them.
All right. Well, we'll go position by position here. We're going to start out with point guard. Adam, I will turn it over to you since I have been yammering away once again.
Steph Curry, probable. I mean, I think that's kind of where you have to start. You know, assuming bringing him back, I assume that he's fully ready to go. There would be no reason for them to keep him out that long and then, you know, slowly work him in. And the price tag is just very, very affordable. Looking at $9,000 on DraftKings in a pretty reasonable matchup against Detroit, I think that's just a really, really nice spot for Curry. You know, obviously there are question marks about if he'll be rusty or not, but I think you have to like the price tag there. John Wall, basically the same price tag at $8,900. Slow paced or a pace down game against Brooklyn. Not a great defensive team, though, and Wall's just playing huge minutes for this Washington team, almost certainly going to be coming off of a loss on Friday night to Philadelphia, as they are currently down 29 points in the third quarter. So Scott Brooks probably will run his starters into the ground again and try and get a win against a Brooklyn team that they should be able to beat at home. So I think the price tag on Wall is very appealing. Chris Paul against Chicago. I don't really like rostering Paul when Harden is active, but the price tag's nice. I don't mind them, you know, at a $7,900 price point. I think that's pretty fair, but I do actually prefer D'Angelo Russell for a little bit cheaper. Pace up game against Washington, a really poor defensive team for Washington as well. I think Russell's the guy that I would really like to get to in the mid-range. All
right, we a couple other guys. We had a surprise start there with Spencer Dinwiddie. But he is at 6,300. Don't know if we want to go back there with him against Washington. As we cruise down our pricing list, we do have Derrick Rose at 5,900. He is eligible at point guard and shooting guard on DraftKings. And then the other guy that is somewhat intriguing is going to be Corey Joseph, 4,400. We now know that we don't have to worry at all about Victor Oladipo. The one concern is what is Darren Collison going to do and some of their other backcourt players. If we're looking for a little bit of early placeholder value, would you consider somebody like Corey Joseph, perhaps Thomas Satoransky at 3,400 on DraftKings against a lesser opponent such as Brooklyn?
I think as far as value here, Corey Joseph is fine. Obviously a nice matchup against Sacramento. And most of his minutes have been coming kind of regardless of Darren Collison since Oladipo's been out. We've seen the point guard position basically be Collison and Aaron Holiday. So Joseph's minutes are pretty safe. Also, Ryan Arcidiacono on DraftKings is still $4,500. Lofty and I talked about it for a while on the Deeper Dive show today or Friday. But he's not someone that you expect to, have ceiling games like he has a couple of games recently, but he still plays 36 minutes a night. He's still inexpensive. And on a shorter slate where there's obviously less value to come by, he is reasonable.
All right. Here's the question near and dear to your heart as we move to the shooting guard position. We do have Bradley Beal, who has been run into the ground by Scott Brooks. If we go back 5 games against the Clippers, he had 41 minutes. He had 34 against Toronto. He had 44 against New Orleans, 49 and a half against Houston. That was in overtime a couple nights ago. New Orleans, he had 34 and a half. We don't know what he's got tonight. His legs, he has shin splint issues every single year. Is that going to rear its ugly head? Is that something you're starting to be concerned about at all with him? Because, damn, he is putting up some serious numbers. He's averaging just over a block and just over a steal per game, along with 20 points and chipping in with 4.5 rebounds per game.
I missed who you said. I heard everything you said about him.
Bradley Beal,
okay.
papier-mâché legs.
Yeah,
flashbacks. You're trying to block it out, Adam, as a Wizards fan.
That's what I thought you were talking about, but I just wanted to check before I the minutes are just they've been so nice. And the good thing about them just getting their asses kicked in Philly on Friday is it should give Scott Brooks another opportunity to limit Bradley Beal's minutes. He had said that he knows he's playing Beal too much, but kind of that's just how it is. But they got blown out by the Pelicans. He sat the final 7 minutes of that game. They are currently on Friday night again getting destroyed by Philadelphia. So I assume he won't see much, if any, time in the fourth quarter there. And that's nice on the front half of a back-to-back. He's been playing in competitive games every single minute of the second half, multiple games in a row now. And it's just, the guy's going to play like 40 minutes most likely at least against Brooklyn. So especially on a shorter slate with less options, it's pretty appealing.
All right, a couple guys here in the mid-tier. One, Tyreke Evans. So let's talk about him for a second. He's got the double revenge. He's going against Sacramento. In Sacramento, that was the team that drafted him. He spent his first 4 seasons with them, did another tour with them a couple years ago. So that, per my calculations, is double revenge. He's averaging in the mid-20s per minutes and not really in the mid-20s for fantasy points. It's the low 20s on DraftKings. Generous scoring here. Is he someone you even want to consider at 5,500 on our 6-team player pool?
Yeah, I still am interested. Like, you have to just project him for 26 to 28 minutes, but the usage is still there. It's up around 24% since Oladipo's injury. He's just shooting insanely bad, and that's something that you don't really expect to continue. I'm going into Thursday night's game against the Lakers. For the season, he had a 48% true shooting percentage, which was 8 percentage points lower than his 56% last season. Since the Oladipo injury, he had a 40% true shooting percentage. So that's 8 percentage points worse than his season average, which is 8 percentage points worse than last season. So really just nowhere to go but up for Evans. Obviously the playing time has been a bit disappointing with Oladipo out. The minutes have been kind of volatile, but that's probably also a factor of him not playing well. So in a huge pace-up matchup against Sacramento and a cheap price tag and people basically just being over it with him, I'm perfectly fine going back there and hoping eventually his shots fall.
All right, here is fun with trivia. I'm saying that because that's the cue for Adam to say, oh, good God, what is EMAC going to ask me? In the Western Conference, do you know who has the second worst record? Now, everybody's bunched within 5 games of each other, but this is what makes it fun.
Utah.
No, Utah has the third worst record. This would be the Houston Rockets. They are going to be hosting Chicago, and they have one James Harden at 11,900. Now, yes, Chris Paul is back. He's missed several games with a variety of maladies. First it was personal, then it was rest, and now it's a sore leg. But we'll have to see what happens in a back-to-back with him. But would you consider James Harden at nearly $12,000 on DraftKings in what is not quite, but sort of approaching a must-win game at home against Chicago?
He's fine because of the slate size and because you have Steph Curry back. So Kevin Durant is also less appealing, but still not someone that I plan on prioritizing unless a bunch of really good value opens, because what tends to happen on slates like this a lot of the time is people will force in a stars and scrubs approach because normally that's the best way to attack a slate. And you'll end up basically just getting really concentrated ownership on the same few mediocre punts just so people can get up to Harden. And so unless, good value opens, I probably won't force him in because he is priced up for what he was doing without Paul out there. And not only does he get a boost in his assist percentage without Chris Paul, he gets a slight boost in his usage rate, but he goes from playing 36 to 38 minutes most nights to playing like 42 to 44. So it's just a completely different spot. That's not to say he's not a good play. It's just that roster construction wise, as it stands now with kind of limited value and I think a pretty high upside, like $7,000 to $9,000 mid range. I think I see myself probably going more that direction than going all the way to Harden.
All right. As we finish up this position, a little forced narrative. We have the Bogdanovićs facing each other. No relation, born in different countries. We have Bogdan, that would be the Sacramento Bogdanović. He is coming off a career-high 26 fantasy points. He is at 5,500. We have Bojan Bogdanović, who will be heading into Sacramento to take on his fellow namesake or surname sake, as they say. Both these guys are in the mid 5,000s. Intriguing matchup for both of them. They do both have flexibility. You can put them at a shooting guard or small forward. I like both. Let's just call them the Pacers Bogdanović. Nice little bit of an up-tempo game for him. And without Victor Oladipo, he's been seeing a lot more minutes. In my opinion, he is the better play than Tyreke Evans at just $200 more, and he has been completely overlooked by gamers the last few games. He tops out at about 30 fantasy points, but been pretty solid there in the mid-20s. And then if I was pressed to choose between the two of them, and we'll get your opinion here in a second, Adam, but I would take the Sacramento Bogdanović, who has clearly asserted his role at the somewhat of the expense, about 3 to 4 minutes a game, of Buddy Hield. Which Bogdanović would you choose, or would you play them both in the same lineup?
Yeah, I mean, I always like Bogdan more than I like Bojan Bogdanović. I always like the Kings one better than the Pacers one because he just does more when he's out there. Bojan is pretty scoring dependent. He can knock down some threes when he gets hot, and he does get more opportunities to do so when Oladipo is out. But he's just not really going to give you normally a ton of rebounding or a ton of assists. The Kings Bogdanović gets pretty much everything done. It's a pace down spot for him, which sucks. But the minutes have been up. Kind of coming at the expense of multiple people, sometimes at the expense of Frank Mason, sometimes taking some minutes from Hield, taking minutes from Shumpert, Justin Jackson, obviously. So, but the minutes have been there. So I do prefer him. I think that they're both in play, though. I will say I disagree, and I would rather play Tyreke than Bojan.
All right, there we go. To be continued Saturday morning. Tune in to the Awesemo.com strategy show, 11 o'clock, and we will find out more if I can come up with something to sway Adam, or if he will convince me of the right answer, or we will just agree to disagree. Moving along here to small forward, we do have Andrew Wiggins. Now he is going into Boston, tougher defensive matchup, but the price is coming down. His results, they have been less than stellar, but he is sitting there at 5,400 in the similar price point as him. We have the eldest of the Holidays, that would be Justin. Suddenly he's learned how to rebound, and he's making shots, apparently having two younger brothers in the NBA is one too many. He was not motivated when it was just Drew who made it to the NBA before him. But now that Aaron has joined, he seems to be, I don't know, a man possessed. What do you got here for Holiday? Perhaps Gordon Hayward, who will be facing Robert Covington. Robert Covington himself up there at 6,500. We've got an intriguing little mid-tier here. I think there are minefields, but I think there is gold. How do we tell the difference?
Yeah, I mean, Wiggins, obviously it's a tough matchup, and the price tag's come down, but so has the playing time. It's just tough for him to get more than 32, maybe 34 minutes because Derrick Rose has to get his, Covington's going to get his. So in tournaments, if you want to go there, sure, but there's guys that I like more.
All right.
Hayward, I think, is fine. A very friendly matchup against Minnesota. So, no issue there, although it is worth pointing out that since acquiring Covington, Minnesota defensively has gotten much better. So, that's something to at least keep in mind instead of using their season-long stats. And Hayward, still hasn't looked great this season. So I don't love either guy. I think that they're probably a little too cheap for their upside, but I wouldn't be excited about getting either one.
All right. We've got to love the position flexibility. So we're talking small forward here. He is power forward eligible. I'm not going to say his name just yet, but he is playing on a 3 and 4 and a back-to-back. But 5 games leading into Friday night, 52 DraftKings points, 41, 48, 39, 41. Yes, it's Jabari Parker. Has he finally figured things out? Is it okay for him to shoot and still let Zach Attack shoot? What's going on here? Lauri Markkanen is getting ready to start to practice. We're not going to have to worry about him anytime soon. But darn, Jabari Parker has put up some phenomenal numbers lately.
Yeah, he's the perfect example of sometimes you have to just trust the numbers and keep playing good plays, kind of like Tyreke Evans. But
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
I'm writing it down in my notebook now, Adam.
But Parker, he sucked for a while this season. But if you looked at the rates, like since Ryan Arcidiacono joined the starting lineup alongside Parker and LaVine, you looked and Parker has the second highest usage rate on the team behind Zach LaVine. He had the second highest rebounding percentage behind Wendell Carter, and he had the second highest assist percentage behind Zach LaVine. And he's playing 34 to 38 minutes a night, depending on Chandler Hutchison's health and matchups and things like that. And he was just having awful games, but you know how involved he is in the offense. None of his rates were changing or decreasing. So you knew it was going to get there eventually. And we've seen him just, absolutely blow out his price tag more often than not recently. He's still affordable. He's $6,800 on DraftKings. He has multi-position eligibility at small forward and power forward, so it's easier to get to him. Not an awful matchup against Houston. I think that Jabari Parker remains a very good play.
All right. And then not to bury the lead, up at the top here, we have Kevin Durant. Fairly reasonable, even though Steph Curry is going to be back. He's at 10,800, not an egregious price tag. Kawhi Leonard at 9,600. That feels a little bit high for him, but he's going into Cleveland in what should be an easy win for Toronto. They are favored by a baker's dozen. That is 13 points in their contest. Do you like either of those guys at the top before we move on to power forward?
Leonard's matchup against Cleveland, obviously really nice. Durant, a little more expensive than I would like now that Curry's back. He's obviously still a very high upside play, but now you're priced basically for him to have a very efficient, good game because Curry does take usage away. He takes ball handling away. Kawhi still, when he plays, he has about a 30% usage rate. He rebounds, he picks up assists. So between the two of them, I would prefer Kawhi. But if you start branching out to other positions, I think there are guys that I probably like a little bit more.
All right, as we move over here to power forward, continuing again position by position. Reminder, promo code EARLYBIRD gets you 1 free week of Awesemo.com premium content, including Slack and the Fantasy Cruncher add-on. Just go to Awesemo.com/join, pick the 1 week package, select the one with the Fantasy Cruncher option, fill in your information. The very last field will be EARLYBIRD, all one word, as your promo code, and you'll get 1 week free. We've mentioned Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Jabari Parker. We've got a couple dinged up guys here with Domantas Sabonis, who's dealing with the sore back, Marvin Bagley, who popped up with the sore back himself after the practice report. We don't know what's going on with Otto Porter. He was out with a personal issue. They think he's going to be back on Saturday. Amongst these iffy guys, does one stand out more than any other?
Sabonis, if he plays, the guy's just unreal. His minutes are frustrating. I mean, he'd be a $10,000 player if he played, 36 minutes a night. He doesn't, but the price tag still, even though it's weird to pay $7,600 for a guy playing 26 minutes, he's averaging 1.5 per minute without Oladipo on the floor this season. He's averaging the same thing since Oladipo's injury. Has a 25% usage rate. I haven't updated it since the game last night, but going into last night, he had here it is. So since Oladipo's injury, Sabonis has a 24.7% usage rate, 29.2% assist percentage, and 26.3% rebounding percentage. So when he's on the floor, he's using 25% of their possessions, and then he's grabbing over a quarter of the rebounds and accounting for almost a third of the assists. So he's just doing everything. Now you get a pace-up spot here against Sacramento. It's really difficult not to like Sabonis if he plays.
All right. One other guy that's now he has multi-position eligibility. That would be Blake Griffin, power forward and center. Do they not know that they have a center named Andre Drummond? DraftKings, come on. But Blake Griffin gets a matchup where we should see, with the return of Steph Curry, Golden State pick up the pace a little bit here. He has a nearly, it looks like eyeballing it here, just shy of a 30% usage rate over his last 7 games. That includes one game where he was ejected back in the fourth quarter on the 11th of November with a flagrant foul. He's somebody that's checking in at 9,300. That's kind of I don't really want to call that the sweet spot, but he's not quite with the upper tier guys, but we know he's much more talented than anybody in the $8,000 price range. How do you feel about Blake Griffin going against Golden State?
I don't have an issue with him.
No Draymond Green.
Right, no Draymond Green, obviously a big thing, and you touched on what I think is a really good point with Steph Curry coming back. The Warriors do play faster when he's out there. Since his injury, they've been one of the slowest teams in the NBA. That should pick up quite a bit with him back on the floor, which obviously bodes well for Griffin. As usual, I think I'll probably end up liking Griffin more on FanDuel than on DraftKings, simply because on FanDuel you have to roster the 2 power forwards, and it's a little bit easier to get to him there. On DraftKings, when you start comparing him to other guys like Andre Drummond, Karl Anthony Towns, players like that, it gets a little bit tougher to prioritize him.
All right, last guy I want to hit on here, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. For him, it's a price play, and I want to point out his position eligibility yet again. On DraftKings, he is now center and power forward eligible. Over his career, over the last 4 years, he has been shooting guard eligible and small forward eligible in various iterations of the different multi-position eligibility for DraftKings. He is at 5,500. We have not necessarily seen the minutes, but wait for it. He's going against a team that's going to be playing small. That is the Washington Wizards. He has crested over 30 fantasy points just once in his last 8 games. Is he someone you would consider for that price tag?
Yeah, I think this is probably the Rondae Hollis-Jefferson coming out party here against the Wizards. Just the perfect kind of matchup for him. It wouldn't be shocking to see him get some time at center against, Markieff Morris, Jeff Green, whoever's out there. But either way, with him playing around 30 minutes here against one of the worst rebounding teams in the league, a team that plays fast, it's a pace-up spot for Brooklyn, doesn't play well defensively, just like kind of the perfect matchup for Rondae Hollis-Jefferson here, I think. Yeah, I think this is probably – and it's not a huge slate, so you're not taking – there's not as much opportunity cost in going to him, even though he hasn't played well. So I think that it's probably a really good spot for him.
All right, a couple guys at the top here as we finish up the pivot position. That would be the center spot. These are center-only eligible on DraftKings, which means they will generally mirror that on FanDuel as well. Andre Drummond – on the back-to-back. Karl Anthony Towns going against Boston, not really sure who's going to guard him. And then Al Horford, because we know that Karl Anthony Towns and pretty much anybody not named Robert Covington doesn't really play defense for the Timberwolves. So we got 3 different guys, 3 different price points with Drummond, Towns, or I guess Drummond and Towns are about the same, but then you got a discount there of about 30% to Horford. Any of those 3 stand out to you?
I like Keith in that price range. Horford, do we know if he's back?
We don't know for sure, but he was just out for rest.
Right. Yeah. So assuming
he should be back on the first.
I think the price tag's fair. I don't love him, but decent price tag. All the guys in that price range are kind of nothing that I love, but like rotating between guys like Horford, Keith, Hollis-Jefferson, Bagley if he's in. These guys are all gonna give you similar projections and probabilities of getting what you want out of them. So just mixing and matching these guys is probably a good way to approach the position.
All right, last guy we're going to mention, because again, we're going to go over everything game by game on the 11 a.m. Saturday DFS strategy show over on YouTube. Check out the awesemo.com channel. We have, and you and I talked about him off air, but we have Tristan Thompson, who is a freaking walking double-double. He is flirting with 40 fantasy points seemingly every night. I'm just checking to see where he is into the fourth quarter here, about midway through. He is at 13 points, 4 assists, 12 boards. He is reasonably priced. He has just, I'm looking at the game logs. I mean, yeah, it was crappy against Steven Adams in the last game, but that was a bit of a mess. They lost by 17. He only had 10 points. In 35 minutes, which kind of sucks. He had 4 points. Now, let's talk about his scoring, which is something we do not see from him. This is NBA scoring. 16, 16, 18, 14, 10, 9, 11, 22. Adam, when did this happen? When did Tristan Thompson start to live up to the contract that his buddy LeBron James got him?
Yeah, it's been pretty incredible. And the rebounding rate's up like 24%. Obviously, we expected him to be better without Kevin Love out there, but I don't think anybody really expected this. And he's also just playing monster minutes. In competitive games, you're getting 36 to 38 minutes a night. The price tag on DraftKings somehow is falling. I guess to account for the matchup with Toronto, but he's 5,800. Yeah, Tristan Thompson's just still a really good play.
All right, we're going to end it on that. There are a ton more center guys we're going to talk about on the Saturday show. Again, 11 o'clock on YouTube. We've got Willie Cauley-Stein. We have Miles Turner. We got to figure out, is it Jonas Valanciunas? Is it going to be Serge Ibaka? Who knows? But we will find out at that point. In the meantime, you can follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS. You can find me at EMACDFS. And, of course, you can follow on Twitter Awesemo at Awesemo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.